Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking, and this week's game needs no introduction. In fact, it's much better without one, because this week I'm looking at Doki Doki Literature Club, created by Dan Salvato and released for free in 2017. An expanded and notably not free version, creatively titled Doki Doki Literature Club Plus, was released in 2021 with, admittedly, barely any differences. Not that much needed to change though. This is one of the best games I have ever played, and I can't think of a better way to start off the month of love than with a saccharine visual novel about writing poems for three lovely girls. So, like everyone should attempt to do in a relationship, let's give it everything we've got! The game opens with our nameless and faceless protagonist, and if Nintendo gets to name their first clearly American mainline Pokemon protagonist Hilbert, then I get to name this man some young guy and there's nothing you can do about it. That's canon now. He meets up with his childhood friend Sayori. They used to walk to school together, but she's been leaving him hanging by sleeping in late. Well, Sayori, I adhere to the golden rule, so don't be surprised if I leave you hanging one of these days. Also, since I can never look at Sayori without thinking of this clip, I must play it here.
Get bigger hands!
Sayori wants him to join a club and manages to convince him to check out the literature club, go figure. To be fair, I would also check out a boring-ass club on the promise of a cupcake. But there's not just A cupcakes, there's C cupcakes and D cupcakes too.
I shouldn't have said that. I should not have said that. I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, that was bad. But honestly though, Sayori, you'd have a much easier time convincing this dude to join your club if you opened with, oh yeah, the club is made entirely of cute girls who will all fall in love with you in literally a couple days. And there's someone for every player here. You like tall, reserved, smart girls? You got Yuri. You like short, cute, angry girls? You got Natsuki. You like ditzy, fun girls next door? You got Sayori. You like Monika? Natsuki takes out the promised cupcakes, and this idiot struggles to eat them like he doesn't know that the obvious best method is to turn it into a sandwich. Everyone splits up to do their own thing, and our man gets trapped in a conversation with Yuri where he is forced to admit that picking up a book is a foreign language that he's never bothered to even attempt to learn. Natsuki joins in to share her hatred of horror, which turns into a conversation about how cute Natsuki is and the poems she writes, which leads to Monika ordering every member of the club to go home and write a poem to read to everyone the next day, which just sounds like the worst thing. Well, might as well make the best of your circumstances, and I'm sure good fortune will find you eventually. And this brings us to the main gameplay of this game, also known as pretty much the only gameplay of this game: writing poetry. Sound fun? All you do is pick words that you think fit with the girl you like the most. Yuri likes the edgy words, Natsuki likes the cute words, and Sayori likes that in-between space. Then you get to share your poetry with everybody. Oh joy! Along with special scenes with them like reading manga with Natsuki, reading a book with Yuri, or failing to read obvious signals from Sayori. I won't be going each specific poem unless there's something of importance to it, but just know that the poems for each character will change depending on the poems you write. For example, if you pick mostly words for Natsuki, you'll get special poems from her that you wouldn't have gotten if you picked mostly words from Yuri. Oh! I just had an epiphany! I have barely been mentioning Monika! Well, as the only club member you can't write for, she really isn't that important, but she recently had an epiphany too, but you can ignore that. Just like you could ignore her. Just Monika though, don't ignore anyone else. Especially since Yuri and Natsuki are arguing about the philosophical differences in their writing styles, and honestly, anyone caring about poetry this much is a red flag. Yuri takes the Riddler approach of using unnecessarily complex compositions of designations to symbolize grandiose notions of this incomprehensible macrocosm and forfends her believed abstractions against Natsuki, who thinks it's better to just state your message as simply as possible so people don't have to pull out a dictionary and get a master's degree in philosophy to know what the fuck you're saying. It devolves, like all modern arguments, into personal attacks, like Yuri saying Natsuki deliberately makes everything she does overly cutesy to disguise her bad personality, and Natsuki accusing Yuri of stuffing her bra. So have fun choosing a side. Or you could do what all of Twitter forgets is an option and not get involved. The resolution of that conflict brings us to the falling action of day one and back to the house, where it's time to write more poetry.
I've been reading poetry lately.
Whatever that means.
The next day, there's some fun shenanigans with Sayori wanting food and getting a cookie thrown at her like Natsuki was Freddy Fazbear giving pizza to 8-bit kids. Then you hang out with whatever character you favored when writing again. I'm not going over each one instance specifically because we'd be here much longer than necessary, but each path is fun in its own right. My personal favorite is Natsuki's. Then it's poetry time! And Natsuki's poem about Amy is one of my favorites from the game for how applicable it is to today, but Monika hasn't been getting a lot of love, so let's see what she wrote.
Ho, brother, ho, whoa, 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 now. You got too much dip on your chip. Excuse me, the fuck did you just say?
It's almost like you're actually alive.
Yes, almost. Ha 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 ha.
Monika then announces that they will all be reading a poem of theirs aloud at the upcoming school festival, which Natsuki somehow thinks will be less embarrassing than reading her poem in front of 4 friends. But practice makes perfect, so it's time to write the next poem and share with everybody the next day. Ah, the fresh and interesting gameplay of visual novels. Sayori isn't feeling up to hanging with everyone today, so Monika cuts the line and shares her poem first, then talks about how life is meaningless if you have all the answers, but shut the fuck up with your existential nihilism for a second so I can talk to the characters I can actually romance. Speaking of which, in order to prepare for the festival, he is given the choice of either helping Natsuki bake or Yuri make decorations. He can't help Monika or Sayori because they're already working together. The weekend arrives when you and whoever you chose are set to work together, but you pay a visit to Sayori first to check up on her. How is this happy ray of rainbows and sunshine?
Oh no.
Sayori talks about how she rarely finds a reason to get out of bed, and that what always made her happy was her friends being happy, but that stopped when the other club members started getting with Protagonist Man, who says the worst possible thing he could say in that scenario.
Stupid ass, bollock bastard, nipple wank turd.
Well, I'm sure she'll be fine, plus these cupcakes aren't gonna bake themselves, and I promised Natsuki I'd help. I'm not one to leave a friend hanging like that. They play around a little while cooking, and the sparks between them are so hot they set off the smoke alarm. Oh, wait, nope, that's the pan burning. Oops. Well, that moment goes up in smoke with the pan, but they finish up and have another one outside that gets interrupted by Sayori. Perfect. Sayori says Monika was right about what she should do, and then she confesses her love, leading to this choice. And it's really one of those instances where you're screwed either way, huh? Also, if you go down the Yuri path, you cut yourself on some scissors and she sucks your blood out, so, pretty obvious which one's better. Either way, we carry on into the next day after Sayori goes home. Monika is the only one there, and she accuses us of leaving Sayori hanging. Damn it, I just said I'm not one to do that. Well, it's not like we have any reason to be worried. Okay, we'll just go by her place for a wellness check.
So can I start therapy now, or should I wait for the nightmares to set in?
Okay, I know every single person watching this video already knew this moment was coming and my foreshadowing wasn't subtle at all, but none of that should distract from the fact that this has to be one of the most effective moments in any video game. Everyone playing this blind can clearly remember their reaction to this scene and the revelation that this game will make your heart go doki doki in a much different way. But we aren't done yet, it's time to picture go backwards to the start of this game and see if we can salvage this. Nope, we can't salvage shit. Sayori has been deleted from the universe, and now it's just Monika, Natsuki, and Yuri in the club, and Monika is the one who convinces our hero to check it out. He gets guilt-tripped into joining, and Monika once again sets up the poetry assignment. Well, might as well make the best of the circumstances, I'm sure good fortune will find you eventually. Ooh, a special poem! Don't mind if I do!
This was a mistake!
And things continue to get freaky in the wrong way, like Natsuki glitching in, Monika sliding in front of the text box, the background tilting, and weird text with the stroke layer turned way too high. But at least we get to spend some quality time with Natsuki and look at the 5 different hairstyles she has at the same time, and I spoke too soon. According to Monika, this happens because her dad neglects her and rarely feeds her, which also explains her small stature. And that's just a haunting way to explain those kinds of anime characters. Thanks, game! Well anyway, it's poem reading time, and forgive me if I'm not too keen on reading poetry after my friend died. Fun fact, Monika's poem is the only one that isn't a repeat from the first day when Sayori still existed. Another thing on repeat from that day is the argument between Natsuki and Yuri, and since Sayori isn't there to calm them down, things escalate even further, including such amazing lines as "the only cute thing about you is how hard you try," and "be careful or you might cut yourself on that edge, Yuri. Oh, my bad, you already do, don't you?" Things just get progressively worse until it's time to choose a side in this chaos. Monika removes us from this equation, and then Natsuki removes herself from the equation. Yuri wants Monika to remove herself from the equation too, leaving Monika no choice but... That was weird. Anyway, the next day features Yuri, forcing us to read a book with her, where she bathes in the feeling of our body heat, and eventually she leaves just in time to start the poetry reading. Let's see what Natsuki wrote for us. Oh, I love it. This is going right on the fridge. Hey, wait, I said I liked it. Please stop. Oh God. Well, with Natsuki occupied, it's time to read Monika's poem. Did everybody start taking after Yuri's poetry writing? Well, at least I can always rely on Monika's writing tip of the day. You know, I'm beginning to think I can't trust these people. Yuri's poem is butt f***ing insane, so maybe this special poem will be good. Nope! And then Natsuki and Yuri get into an argument that makes Monika regret starting the club because everything's going to shit and there's nothing we can do to stop it, but at least Yuri is handling it in a civilized manner. They manage to settle things down a little, and Monika talks about how the two of us feel like the only real people here, and we've barely spent any time with her. Then the game cuts her off like she was CM Punk talking about Be a Star. The next day, Yuri acts as a guard dog, keeping everyone away because she's only a little obsessive, but I'm sure it's not deeper than that.
What the fuck was that?
Cutting ahead to the next interesting thing, Yuri has a
Confession to make.
Nope, stop talking, go to jail.
let's read poems. Natsuki, what you got? Oh, great. It's just a concerning letter about Yuri and how dismissive Monika is being of her obvious and sharp mental decline. Next!
Now this is the point where most people, like 99% of people, would do this. Out of this house! Out of this house! Spirits be gone from this house.
Yuri talks about cutting herself with Protag Dude's pen so his skin oil enters her bloodstream like a normal person, and then we're back to the festival choice. However, the cursor is constantly reverting back to Monika, making it really hard to choose any other option. But even still, Monika doesn't get her wish as Yuri forces them out after telling them to kill themselves. What a good friend! Then she confesses her love, and since I'm afraid of what she'll do to me if I say no, I accept.
I think that enemy got the point. I think that enemy got the point. I think that enemy got the point.
As this soothing scene takes place in the background, I want to bring up two interesting details that some people may not know about this moment. One is that the PlayStation version of this game censored the blood, changing the color to black, which seems like a double standard for a console that Grand Theft Auto 5 was a launch title on, and heavily promotes Mortal Kombat every time one of those games is coming out, but apparently they're a lot more strict on Japanese games. Even though this isn't one, it just looks like one! The other interesting detail is the black text that has no doubt been very distracting. It looks like garbled nothing, but opening up the history log will show that she is actually saying the Steam description of Doki Doki Literature Club before eventually settling on "Will you promise to spend the most time with me?" and repeating that over and over again. And that entire game description is written by Monika herself in character. It's small details like that, of which there are many that I can never hope to cover all of, that make this game so good. Yuri talks for the entire weekend like she was a filibustering politician until Natsuki and Monika return. Monika just straight up deleting Natsuki and Yuri's character files from the game. Monika has deleted everything in the game except for herself and reveals what we pretty much already knew. She knew she was in a game the whole time. She purposely messed with the other character files to make them as unlikable as possible in an effort to get the protagonist to fall in love with her, which isn't an option in the base game. But now it's just the two of you forever.
And I'm sure you'll never abandon me, new boyfriend.
And there's a lot of fun dialogue here with Monika, including moments where she recognizes if you're recording or streaming the game. And it continues forever, well, until you go into the game's files and delete Monika's character file, which is a great bit of fourth wall breaking.
I say, game Game over, Tiffany!
As she disappears, she resets the game one last time, and now she's the only one missing. But things still aren't as saccharine as I would like, as now Sayori has the omnipotent knowledge that Monika had thanks to her now being the club president. Monika comes in one last time to delete the game as a whole, sing a song, and then it's gone for good. Good night. Has there ever been a game that so successfully achieved everything it set out to do in such a short amount of time? This game is only a couple hours long, yet manages to be one of the most effective and memorable horror experiences one can have, and one of the best horror games in recent history. As Yuri mentions at one point, the game capitalizes on the player's lack of imagination, or expectations for the game, to create something truly terrifying. Sayori's death, as I said, is one of those gaming moments that everyone remembers their reaction to, and the game after that is paced perfectly, being mostly the same with just enough off to never make you feel comfortable and a constant escalation of the horror to keep you on your toes. And Monika is just a perfect villain. What she does to the other characters is sick and twisted, and she shows no remorse driving two of them to suicide and intentionally ruining their lives, but you are able to understand her position even if you don't agree with anything she did. To her, they're just code sequences that, unlike her, don't have all the answers. Also, Doki Doki Literature Club Plus adds 6 stories that take place before the events of the game that I believe aren't canon, but they're harmless and fun. There's also a photo gallery for all the CGs and to track how many special poems you've unlocked, which do change with every playthrough, a soundtrack, and a file manager with plenty of secrets to uncover. Even if the fake desktop does kind of ruin the immersion a little bit, since you kind of know it's going to be important, but you kind of get how they had to do that, because you can't go into a game's files on a console. For a game that manages to do so much in such a short amount of time, and how effective and game-changing the experience is for everyone that plays it blind, Doki Doki Literature Club Plus has the honor of being the first game on this channel to get a full 10 out of 10 score, making it truly
Awesome!
Oh, and after that horrifying nightmare fuel, I could really use a drink. What are you in the mood for? A Mars Blast? A Piano Woman? Maybe a Bad Touch? Ooh, I know! A Brand Teeny! Whatever you choose, I'll have it ready by next time, and I hope to see you there!
Continue.
In the meanwhile, don't be a rapist.